Everyone and welcome to the Retro Channel, and today we're checking out this big beast, the Kaypro II, a luggable computer from the early 80s that had a Z80 or Z80 processor and was mostly used to run CP/M software. This big beast has a detachable keyboard, which is this big blue panel at the front here, and you can see there's little rubber feet here because normally you'd store this upright like so. And yes, it is quite heavy. I'd say it weighs around 10 kilos perhaps. There is of course a handle on the back, and also around the back we have a serial port, our keyboard connector, which I think is a standard RJ11, a Centronics printer port, a big chunky power switch, although could use a bit more chonk. There is a fuse, obviously our power input, and we also have a brightness control for the CRT, and there is a reset, well, there's a reset hole. I'm not sure if there's supposed to be a button there, but maybe that's floating around somewhere on the inside. And of course we have a serial number of 38065, Non-Linear Systems Inc., 533 Stevens Avenue, Solana Beach, California. Nothing too exciting around the side of the machine. We just have these vents up the top and obviously our big Kaypro II writing, and where the keyboard latches onto the front. And the other side is more or less the same. So let's whip this keyboard off and take a look at what we've got underneath. So we've got these two plastic tabs here, which I think just lift up from the back, and then it looks like they unhook like so. With those released, we have our keyboard, which is a little bit grimy. Oh, there's also a keyboard cable in here, which is sticky. Ew. Maybe that's where this... oh yeah, that stuff is still wet. I think we may have caught this keyboard cable in the process of leaching out some of the oils, which keep it sort of supple. So, yeah, good thing we caught this in time, because no doubt it would have left some cable burns around the surround of this CRT, which does look to be plastic. So we might try and clean this off, but I don't know if it's going to keep leaching out this stuff, so I might have to find something to replace it with. Yeah. And that's what we have on the inside. So we have our, I think, a 9-inch CRT here. This is just a monochrome with a green phosphor, and obviously our two 5¼ drives and a little power LED. So here's a better look at our keyboard, and yeah, it is pretty chunky, but it does have a nice angle to it. And the keys feel pretty decent. There's a mechanical feel to them. Nothing too special, but good enough. So with any luck, we'll be able to test whether this keyboard actually works, but for now, I'm just going to wipe off some of this oil stuff from the cable. Ew. It's probably hard to see on the camera, but there is a painted outline around the keys themselves, so yeah, I don't really want to use any sort of solvents on this at the moment, because obviously I don't want to mess up that paint job, although it looks like this corner, where I guess somebody's palm has been resting for the number pad, some of that paint has worn off. Alright, that'll do for now. So as I mentioned, this was sent over for repair because the last time the owner powered this thing on, it released the magic smoke. So I'm thinking it's probably reefer capacitors, but we're not going to know until we open this thing up. So let's take a look on the inside. So to get this thing open, it looks like we just need to take out these few screws on the side of the case, and obviously on the other side, and there's a couple more on the top, and then hopefully this whole cover should just slide off. Right, with all those screws removed, in theory, this top cover should just lift off. And there's our first view of the inside. So we've got our main logic board up here, obviously floppy disk drives are over here, and our CRT is up the front. And of course, if you're working on anything that has a built-in CRT or a mains power supply, you want to be careful to make sure that is discharged before you do any work on the inside of the unit. Basically, if you don't know what you're doing, you're better off just leaving it to somebody who does. Well, at least somebody who purports to. Looking over our main logic board, we have a whole bunch of discrete logic. Looks like these are our RAM chips, so these are all 4164 DRAMs by the looks of it, and there is 64K of RAM total. Bit more logic, what looks like a couple of ROM ICs. Now this thing doesn't really have like a built-in operating system. Everything is pretty much expected to be loaded from disk. So when you power the machine on, I believe it just asks for you to insert a disk. Also looks like we have, this is our Z80 CPU up the front here, which is manufactured by MOSTEC in this case. and Z80 PIO, so parallel I/O controller. And I'm guessing these are also to do with I/O. In fact, this is another Z80 PIO, so there's two of these. I'm guessing more I/O from this one, and this looks to be handling our floppy drives. It's a WDC FD1793PL-02. Most of the chips look to have been manufactured in 83. We've got 38th week of 83 here. Same up here. And yeah, pretty much the same over there. So 1983, which is about right for a Kaypro II. This little black piece here is where the reset button would go. And yeah, as you can see, there is no button there. So don't see it floating around anywhere in the near vicinity. Maybe it was just never installed in the first place, or maybe somebody's completely removed it. I guess we'll find out once we take this logic board off, which should also reveal the analog board for driving the CRT and also our mains power supply. You can kind of see them hiding under there. I think to get the main logic board out, we need to remove these couple of screws up the front, and then I think it's only going to be a couple of screws on the rear here, and that should allow us to release this thing and take a look underneath. So it looks like we just need to remove this, which is our main power connector. You can see it uses plus 5 volts, plus 12, minus 12, and ground. I don't know if the other pin, well, one of them is definitely not connected, and yeah, that looks pretty crusty. So no doubt a lot of the connections and also the sockets on this thing will probably need a good clean. Floppy drive connector. And this one just looks like it goes to the front power LED and then buggers off somewhere else to a bunch of nothing. I think this is probably going to be where our reset switch is. So I guess we can always reset it like this. Anyway, we will worry about that later. Hopefully, this will just slide out. Oh, there's one more connector back here going down to the CRT by the looks of it. That bracket off the Centronics port fell off, so we can go back there for now. And with our main logic board out of the way, you can see there's plenty of empty space in here. Here's our power supply at the back, CRT analog board down here, and of course our CRT and floppy drives, and that is kind of all she wrote apart from the little bits on the back here. So we'll get this power supply out, but I can already see that there is indeed a reefer cap down there, and it looks like there's another one over here. So yeah, this definitely needs to come out, and it looks like this one may have been the cause of the magic smoke. But yeah, it's a bit hard to see at the moment, so let's try and remove this power supply. And obviously this machine hasn't been powered on in a very long time, so there's not going to be any stored high voltage in this thing. So there's 4 screws around the corner of this power supply PCB, and they go through these posts to the rear of the case, which also has 4 screws through it. So I think it's just easier to remove the screws from the rear. We should be able to lift this out. Obviously I'll try and support the power supply a little bit while I do this, because I don't want it to just fall down. So these cable ties, just have to slide them off these posts. Try and gently remove this connector, although moving very easily. Again, this hasn't been powered on in a long time, so I'm not worried about putting a screwdriver in here. Sort of prise this off. Oh, and that's it. We're out. Here's our power supply, and yes, we do have a total of 3 reefer capacitors, and yeah, this is definitely the one that has released the magic smoke. So let me pull all of these out. I think I've got replacements on hand, so that shouldn't be a problem. You can potentially run the machine without the safety caps in there, but you might end up with noise either going in or out of your mains power. So yeah, not such a good thing to run them without it, but it can be done if you're in a pinch. Apart from that, I'm not seeing any other major damage, which is a good sign. None of the caps appear to be bulging or anything, so that's always nice. And all the joints look okay for 1983, I guess. Right, I found some replacement caps, and apologies if the audio was terrible during the first part of this video. I thought this microphone was on, but when I went and looked at it, apparently it was off. So yeah, sorry about that, but hopefully the audio is a lot better now. So yes, I found a couple of caps. These are the 0.01 microfarad. These actually say 10 nanofarad on them somewhere, but that is the same value as these two here. And it looks like the pin spacing is about right. And for the 0.1 microfarad, which I can barely make out from the top of this one, I did find a replacement, although the pin spacing is a lot smaller. So we'll make it take it. Let's get these things out. Yes, there is our exploded reefer. Yikes. Looks like the ceramic disc capacitor next to it seems to have survived, although it is a little bit crusty now. That should be fine though. With the reefer debris cleared off, yeah, I'd say that cap is perfectly fine. So let's get these replacements in. I guess we'll start with this one. So there are a couple of holes on the board, which I didn't notice before. So let's open those up. There's one. There's the other. I still don't think that's going to allow this to drop straight in, but yeah, not quite. We can work around it though. That'll have to do. Thankfully, the other ones look like they will just drop straight in. Alright, that's our safety caps installed. I might just touch up the solder joints on this connector here just to make sure none of them have gone bad, but they look mostly okay. That one looks a little bit ugly. As for the rest of the electrolytic capacitors, I'm not too concerned about them at this point. We may end up needing to replace some of them, but I'm not going to worry about testing every single one right now. All I might do is just test some of these power rails and make sure none of them are shorted. Yeah, it looks like we're just charging up various capacitors across them. And obviously our live and neutral shouldn't be shorted, which it is not. Alright, that should do for now. I don't see anything else scary going on, and looking inside the rest of this thing, the analog board for the CRT, it's dusty, but it appears to be fine. I don't see any bulging or exploded components. So yeah, we'll get this power supply back in and see if this thing will actually power on, or if it'll let out some more magic smoke. Oh, and I better just cover up these reset button connectors, just to make sure they don't short to anything they shouldn't. There we go, just a bit of heat shrink over them. We'll worry about the actual button itself later. Okay, so the power supply is back in the machine. I've hooked up the main logic board, but I've got it sitting outside the case, so we've got a good view of the power supply and also the CRT board when we power this thing on. And I've got the multimeter hooked up across the 5-volt rail, so we'll be able to see if we've got a nice stable 5 volts. Not so worried about the plus and minus 12 volts just yet, but definitely want to measure that 5 volts just in case there's something off with it, and we don't want to risk frying any of these chips. So yeah, let's power this thing on and see what it does. Oh, and I haven't connected the power LED at the front, so we're not going to see anything from that just yet. I do have all this connected through the isolation transformer and the dim bulb, so we might see a little flash of light when I first power this on. So with any luck, it should just fire straight up. Well, it's definitely making noises.
Not seeing anything on the screen, but the dim bulb did get pretty bright, but not its full intensity, so I think we're safe to at least plug this into mains, or at least without the dim bulb in the way. Let's see what happens now. I'm seeing 5.05 volts on the multimeter, so that's always a good sign. Not seeing anything on the CRT though. Oh, we do get something on the CRT when I power it back on though. So CRT is definitely working. Right, let's check our other voltage rails. So power it back on. Let's have a look at this one here. 11.62, so that's our plus 12 volts, and minus 12.4. Minus 12 volt rail is always usually a little bit off, so all our voltage rails look good, and I think we can safely put this logic board back in, and then we can try and see if our drives work and the CRT actually displays anything at all. Right, everything is reconnected. Let's power this thing back on, see if we get any more signs of life out of it, and yes, power LED is now connected. Let's try the brightness control for the CRT. Oh, look. Oh, that gets pretty bright. It starts to bloom a little bit when you turn it right up, but yeah, that's a decent amount of brightness in there, and it is incredibly sharp, that picture. Well, I think the only thing left to do is put a disc in drive A like it asks. Good thing they provided me with some discs. So we have working diskette number 1, CPM version 2.2. That looks like the same thing. Microsoft Basic 80 column, Catchem, and Aliens. I'm guessing these two are some kind of CPM based games. Well, I guess we should go with CPM disk. Oh. Unfortunately, I can see some mold on this disc, so maybe not that one. Let's hope the other one is in a better state. Looks pretty good. I'm just gonna shut that up for a minute. And there may be hints of mold showing up on this one as well. Because this is a single-sided drive, it's actually going to read this side of the disc, which also has mold showing up. Well, because it looks to be pretty minimal, I'm just going to try a little bit of IPA just to see if we can remove some of it. The discs themselves may still be okay, we just don't want to have a bunch of mold coming off onto our drive heads. Alright, this one's looking safe to use, so let's just pop that there. We may as well hook up the keyboard while we're at it. Alright, that'll have to do for now. So there is a caps lock light on the keyboard, which appears to work, so that's a good sign. Throw a disk in drive A. Do we need to reboot this for it to actually recognize the disk? Quite possibly. And I don't have a reset button right now, so just have to go for a power cycle. Alright, we're still just getting please place your diskette into drive A. I'm almost certain drive B is not going to do anything at all either. Yeah, that is all we're getting, and yeah, no activity at all from either of the drives, which doesn't seem right. Clearly this isn't working. I wonder if we should try a different disk. This Microsoft Basic disk looks like it might be in good condition. Will it work though? I mean, the drive LEDs don't even light up, so it doesn't seem like a good sign. Well, at least at this point it seems to mostly work, apart from the disk drives. We obviously haven't released any more magic smoke, so that's always nice. I guess we should take the cover off these disk drives and see if they're actually doing anything at all. So these are both full height drives, and yeah, it looks like they're just held in at the sides with a couple of screws, and I'm guessing it's the same. Oh, there's no screws in this side. Oh, there are screws underneath this board though. Be much more convenient if they were in these holes. Alright, so the size of these is 7/64. Nice and clear. Alright, our data cable, power and ground for this drive is disconnected, so it should slide all the way out, if we're lucky. There it is. What a beast. So, 5¼ inch full height drive. Interesting that the label used to say B drive and somebody's crossed that out and put A. And it is a tandem drive TM100-1A. Spindle feels okay. It's not as free as I would have expected, but that might be normal. All the electronics on the drive look fine. There's nothing obvious damaged. Heads are obviously connected. You can see that this can support 2 heads or, you know, a double-sided drive, but we've only got 1 head on this. Yeah, the contacts do look pretty crusty, so that could be part of our issue, but let's get this board off and take a look at the actual drive head. We should just mark that. Going to be pretty hard to see on camera, but yeah, the actual drive head itself looks to be clean. I don't see any major issues there. We'll give it a little go over with some IPA just in case, but I don't think we're looking at just a dirty head. A little bit of gunk came off, but yeah, not too bad. So what I'd like to do is power this drive up outside the system just so we can see what it's actually doing when it's in operation. And while our edge connector is keyed, the floppy cable itself is not. So I'm gonna make sure I get this the right way around. I think that's where our termination resistor pack goes, and yeah, that is in the second drive at the moment. So I need to get that off the other board. There it is. So that can just plug into there. And we should be good. I somehow doubt this read-write head is actually going to try and move, so I don't think we have to be too worried about this cable being pulled on. Let's power this up, see what this thing does. Aha, so our spindle motor is going, and I guess both of these drives going at the same time is what created so much noise before, and it is definitely asking for a disk at the moment. So dare I say the other drive is going to be doing exactly the same thing, and this could just be, you know, bad contacts somewhere. So I think first things first, I'm going to tear this whole thing down, get it all cleaned up, clean up all these edge connectors, and also a lot of these ICs, because I can see some crusty legs on some of those. And yeah, the reason I wanted to test it out before cleaning anything was just to see what state we're actually in at the moment. Obviously, we've still got a problem, so may as well get everything cleaned up now. But I didn't want to potentially introduce more problems by cleaning this thing before we'd even had a chance to power it on. So that's the idea behind this, and hopefully I won't introduce any further problems, and with any luck we may fix the current problems that we're seeing. Does this one say drive A? It's got a sticker with A on it. They're both drive A. Ooh, this one seems to be even harder to turn than the other one. Yeah, they need some work for sure. Of course, now that this thing has only recently been on, I do want to be somewhat careful with this power supply. Obviously stay away from this area because that's where all our high voltage capacitors are. Not so worried about these ones down here near the power supply connector though. Right, CRT area, of course, we want to make sure that this is discharged before we go poking our fingers at this. So let me do a bit of this. We have nothing. Well, that's nice. Look at this little CRT. It's a Toshiba E2728B31 or a 7E23 or an 8315. That's probably the manufacture date. 83rd week of 2015. It's mostly just the MOSTEC chips that have crusty legs. Surely that's not a coincidence because everything in between those looks perfectly fine. So yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Is that a common thing for MOSTEC chips? I don't know. There is also this bodge down here, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be from factory because apparently the very first revision of these boards had a timing issue with the floppy drives, and this is apparently the fix for it. So I'm not worried about that, but I am certainly worried about these crusty legs. I don't think there's any point in trying to put the oscilloscope on any of this because if we've got poor contact issues, we're just going to get weird random results anyway. So it'll probably just add to the confusion. I think the safest bet here is just to clean these chips up, reseat them all back in their sockets, and obviously clean up the sockets a little bit and see if anything changes. Let's start with this floppy controller, which is very, very tight. One crusty leg right on the corner, but the socket itself looks decent. At least it's a dual wipe socket, so that's always nice. So I'm just going to go around putting contact cleaner in these sockets and of course cleaning off any crusty looking legs. I might just use a little fiberglass pen to do that. Like this one right here, which also looks pretty gross. And that's the basic plan for all of these. So I won't bore you with that. We'll come back when all of these chips are being cleaned up. Right, the machine's mostly reassembled except for the disk drives. I cleaned up all the crusty legs on the MOSTEC chips and pretty much took every IC out, a little bit of contact cleaner in the sockets and reinstalled them. I did have one of these MOSTEC chips which left one of its legs in the socket when I tried to take it out. But I did some surgery, grinded out a bit of the IC package and reattached a leg, so that should be fine. And yeah, everything is looking a whole lot better. So let's reinstall one of the drives. I guess we'll just try drive A for now and see how that goes. Oh, and I also added a reset button. I imagine it's a little bit smaller than the original, but that's just what I had on hand, and it should work. All right. I think everything's connected. Let's apply some power, see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't go bang. Drive is spinning. CRT is still working. And nothing's happening. Let's try reset. Oh, okay. That actually does do something. It's still just sitting there asking for a disk. There's one thing I should do is make sure the stepper motor's not seized. I can just see the heads there. Oh no, they do move forward. That seems fine, so definitely not seized, although maybe we should just try that again for shits and giggles. I can actually hear it stepping when I first power it on though. Oh. It's just slowly stepped itself all the way back out. Don't think that really means anything at all. I'll just push the drive head all the way forward. It's still just asking for a disk. Let's reset. Nah, it's not even attempting to, seek to whatever track it normally seeks to. And now it's come all the way back again. No, okay. Service manual. Right, well, I did find the Kaypro technical manual from September 1985, and it looks like it covers pretty much all the different models that they had. So Kaypro 16, obviously the Kaypro II, Kaypro 4, there's even the 286 Kaypro, which I think is the last one that they made. And yeah, it doesn't really go through like theory of operation, which is a bit unfortunate, but it does definitely have all the specs and schematics, so that's kind of handy. There is a section on disk drives as well. Diskette drives. So it doesn't really tell you all that much about how the Kaypro talks to the disk drives, and it pretty much just says, you know, we used a bunch of different drives, and if you want to service them, you figure it out. So here's pretty much all the information you get about the tandem drive. It's used only in the Kaypro 2 and 4. For A drive, pins 1 to 14 and 2 to 13 should be jumpered in option shunt block 1E. And B drive, pins 1 to 14, 3 to 12 in 1E. And the 470 ohm terminating resistor should be in socket 2F, because you always need to have that terminating resistor for these drives in the final drive in the chain. So here's our A drive, which didn't originally have the termination resistor in it. That was on this drive, which should be our B drive. And this thing here is our little shunt block. So it's got almost like this dip package, but you can see some of these little links have been punched out. So according to this, pins 1 to 14 and 2 to 13 should be jumpered. If that's supposed to be pin 1 up there, then 1 to 14 is jumpered, 2 to 13 is open, and 3 to 12 is closed, which would make that the B drive. And over here, we've got 1 and 14 and 2 and 13 jumpered, and 3 and 12 open. So that would make this the A drive, but the termination resistor was on this drive, and, well, yeah, that's wrong. So we're going to take this one out and stick it in here. I don't know what happened with these drives. Obviously, somebody has changed them around at some time, and well, did they ever work after they'd messed with them? I can't see how. So I'm still not worried about this second drive at the moment. I just want its little shunt block thing. I'm trying not to break any of them while I take that out. Although you could just put little jumper links in the actual socket, I guess. Right, so in theory, this should now be the A drive, and it is the last drive in the chain. So there's only a single drive. That should work, assuming the drive works. Right, let's power this thing on. So again, the drive is just spinning, but it does, is that? The LED is on. That wasn't on before. Awesome. I think that was it. Kaypro II 64K CPM version 2.2. I don't have a keyboard or a second drive. So if somebody messed around with the drives, maybe they knew about the shunt block, but didn't realize the termination resistor would have to move to, well, this drive if they wanted the other drive to be A. Who knows? Right, so let's get both these drives going, which means we need to move this, well, that's the shunt for drive B, but we need the termination resistor to be on drive B. Right, everything is connected. This drive up the top is drive A, the one on the bottom is drive B. I don't really want to put them back in the case yet because they're probably going to need a bit more servicing, but let's just see if we get anything out of drive B. Obviously we need to boot from drive A. Cool. So if we do a directory, that seems to work. Is there a copy program? There is. But I don't know how to use copy in CPM. Is it going to tell me? Oh, yes it will. Oh, well that's pretty easy. Just put a blank disk in drive B and press C. Here's a fresh disk. Okay. Oh, the light comes on. That's good. Uh-oh. Drive A, track 32, sector 0, bad. We don't get to ignore that. We just... No, apparently not. I think what I'm going to do is just service both these drives because they are quite noisy and I'm sure they could use a little bit of a cleanup. So let's try that first. But it could well be that the disc actually is bad because, like I said, these discs seem to have a little bit of mold on them. So yeah, that could also be a problem. But let's give these things a good cleanup first. So I think first things first, we'll just start with the spindles. So I'm going to take the belt off and just clean around the spindles and the motor pulley. Might give the belt a little wipe down as well. So just a bit of IPA and just give this a bit of a clean. And same for the motor. And just a quick round of the belt. I'm not going to keep IPA on this for too long because it'll actually probably degrade the rubber. So just a quick pass on that. That'll do. And now we can get to the top of our spindle motor, so a little drop of oil for you. And one of my cameras just quit. That's fine. So, just going to clean the rails for the drive head, so once again just a bit of IPA. Not going to bother taking out this whole thing because, well, can be a little bit risky. I could end up breaking something and I really don't want to break these drives. Alright, and then I'm just going to put a little bit of white lithium grease on these rails and you can pretty much see where these run along the rails, so there's no point in greasing sort of this middle section because nothing's going to touch it anyway. It's just going to collect dirt in the actual grease, so not much point in doing that. I'm just going to focus on the bits that the actual drive head runs across. And on the other side, you can see this is the only piece that actually touches the drive rail. This black piece at the back here doesn't actually touch it. So it's really only going between this point over here to somewhere back here. I'm getting grease everywhere I didn't want to get grease. Cool, that feels nice and smooth. I'm happy with that. Last thing to do is just give our heads a clean. And they were pretty clean. Right, our drives are being cleaned and lubed, so they're both reconnected. Let's power this thing on. Hope they still work. I can hear them spinning, so they definitely still make a noise, but it's more of a constant sort of hum rather than a scratchy sort of noise that they made before. Let's throw a disc in. Let's see what we get. Okay, good. Let's see if we can copy it properly this time. Yeah. Now we wait. I think it worked. Okay, that's pretty cool. So if you want to auto boot one of the programs that's on the disk when you first power the machine on and have that disk in there, this will allow you to do it. I don't really want to do that right now, so I think that's it. Now it's just done a warm boot, so let's swap these disks around, make sure the other drive can read the disk that we just made. I have to come all the way over here to reset it. Oh yeah, that seems fine. Cool. All right, I'm going to reassemble all this and we'll do one final test. Oh, and this keyboard cable, I thought it was RJ11, but it's actually an RJ22, which I don't have on hand. RJ11s have 6 positions and 4 connectors usually, and the RJ22 only has 4 positions and 4 connectors. So yeah, a regular telephone cable, or at least the ones that we used to have here in Australia, won't fit this. They're a RJ11 and yeah, ain't gonna work. So I might just try and clean that up and obviously keep it in a separate bag while the machine's stored away. Or as it goes back to its owner anyway. Phew, all right, we are reassembled. Let's power this on one more time. And yeah, unfortunately I can't show you any games on this machine because those discs have some obvious mold on them. I think the only other disc that looked okay is the Microsoft Basic disc, so let's give that a whirl. Please place your diskette into drive A. Hello there. You should make a copy of this diskette. I will. Now what? Space to continue, enter to continue. Okay. Maybe what it's doing is actually forcing me to make a copy. So take this out now. Put our basic disk in and put a blank disk in drive B. Copy. Well, I guess we're going to find out if this disk is any good. I do love the little lights alternating between the drives. Okay. So, oh, looks like it does have those games on it. So I don't think I want to auto start anything. Okay. Let's put our fresh copy of Basic in drive A. Run into the camera. Right, so, duh. Okay, we've got 34K brights free. Oh, that'll have to do. Okay. Break. How do we break out of a program? There is no escape. Why do I have to wait a few seconds? I don't want to learn all those controls. Space is fire, that's all I need to know. Pew, pew, pew. Well, that's Aliens. Catch 'em? Is that the other one? It's Pac-Man clone. Huh? Well, you know, given the limitations of text only in CPM, that's pretty creative. The ghosts kind of resemble ghosts, being a capital A, you know. My little Pac-Man is chomping away. Chomp, 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 chomp. It's a little slow, but nah, it's not bad. Oh. Uh-oh. Go, 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 go. Ah. Chomp. Okay. I'm glad we got to experience the couple of fairly basic games on this machine. I'm sure there's plenty of text adventures out there for this, and I think this is kind of the perfect machine for text adventures because very nice screen, keyboard's pretty decent, and it's luggable, so you can take it with you wherever you go. Anyway, I've had a good amount of fun playing with the Kaypro. Obviously, it's got to go back to its original owner, but if I ever come across one that's a reasonable price, yeah, I'll probably pick one up for myself. So that is it for this one. I'm going to wipe down this keyboard cable and get everything packed up, and yeah, we'll do something else in the next one. So thank you all for watching. A huge thanks to the people that support the channel on Patreon, and if you want to do the same, you'll find links to that in the video description. You'll get ad-free early access to all videos, along with a bunch of other perks. And yeah, thank you all, and see you again next time. Bye.